horizon. A legend has passed away, and the NWA is back during pandemic time. We have a few things to talk about on this modern pro wrestling edition of HIAC Talk Radio. I am the above average comedian, Dan Calchico. Follow me on Twitter, Dan83. Mark Go Thompson, you can follow him at Go Thompson. Craig Legons is at Craig Legons. It's real hard at the bottom of your screen that I'm not going to ever add there. It's because, I could. I could, and I think I will.
Oh, now you're going to be a graphics guy. Oh, boy.
You should see my other videos. Nobody else does. You should watch my other videos at YouTube.com.
You need an
What?
You need an intern.
I do need an intern. I had an intern. And no, it wasn't.
Another story.
That's not that kind of story, but it is a whole other story. She read this. She could hear me. So anyway, but we're cool now. My point is I had an assistant. And nobody likes me. But anyway, Craig, an unorthodox start here. So I'm going to throw it to you, because apparently English has skipped me this week. And this would kind of fit under historian, but we're going to still have a separate historian episode. But, as I said at the top, a legend has left the earth, another one, and that would be Pat Patterson. So I figured we'd be better off with you and Mark taking this one. And I'll just have something to say at the end. And I'll just hang back, Mr. Legons.
Yeah, well, thank you for that gracious introduction, Mr. Calachico. Yes, for anyone listening to this podcast, we are all about professional wrestling, and we lost a significant figure in professional wrestling this morning. We lost Pat Patterson, a longtime employee of the WWE, being the eldest senior member of this podcast. I remember Pat Patterson long before he came to the WWE, as his place in history is assured, because for those of you who only know Pat Patterson as the behind-the-scenes guy in WWE, as one of the stooges with Jerry Briscoe, as one of Vince's right-hand man, or even if you know him as the first Intercontinental Champion, even if you weren't old enough to know when he won it, or you just know that because he's always referred to as that, the very first Intercontinental Champion. Pat Patterson's legacy and history goes way, way, way back before that. Coming out of Canada, he broke into the sport in 1958, and in the 60s and through the 70s. And it wasn't until they got to San Francisco where the promoter, Roy Shire, a very influential promoter, started a lot of people's career, told Pat to dye his hair blonde because he wanted to team him up with his other main star in San Francisco named Ray Stevens. And Pat Patterson and Ray Stevens formed the original Blonde Bombers. And Bret Hart, Dusty Rhodes, even Jim Ross referred to them as the greatest tag team of the 70s. The Blonde Bombers were incredibly influential, and to every team from Dick Murdoch and Dusty Rhodes to the Freebirds said, word for word, they patterned themselves. They wanted to be like Patterson and Stevens. Patterson and Stevens were synonymous. They won 3 NWA World Championships back when the San Francisco territory recognized the World Championship as the NWA title. This is back when there were several different NWA tag team titles. Several different territories referred to their tag team champions as world champions. And Patterson and Stevens ranked above, head and shoulders above every other tag team in the 70s and in the United States. And when they moved to the AWA, when Patterson did, he turned bad guy. He was a face in San Francisco, turned bad guy in Florida, much to my chagrin. And then when he went to the AWA, he and Stevens reformed the Blonde Bombers and won the AWA Tag Team Championship from Greg Gagne and Jim Brunzell. They both were up in there in age, but their moves, their tag team ability, the way they both came off the top rope is still copied to this day. If you look at any Blonde Bombers, Patterson and Stevens matches on YouTube, you can see shades of the Midnight Express. You can see shades of the Andersons, of Tully and Arn, the tag team of Patterson and Stevens. Like I said, the original Blonde Bombers, and a lot of teams have called themselves Blonde Bombers after that. But Patterson and Stevens set the mold, set the tone for tag team wrestling in the 70s, and that carried on. His work in the WWF when he defeated Ted DiBiase for the North American Championship and then claimed he won a tournament in Rio de Janeiro to become the first intercontinental champion. Even though he kept the same belt, it was the exact same belt, the North American Championship was changed to the Intercontinental title, and Pat Patterson was claimed is the first holder of that belt. You gonna say something, Go, before your finger falls off?
No, just real quick. Didn't he beat the South American champion for that title?
Yeah, I believe so. Records
Because
are sketchy.
that's just the one point that I really wanted to make. It's not that he's the first intercontinental championship, especially with the North American Championship being recognized in NXT now. It's really kind of sad that we've lost the last South American champion of all time.
That's true. We're in double mourning. From there, when he came to the WWF, not only did he establish himself as a heel right away, as being managed by the late great Grand Wizard, when his contract was sold to Lou Albano, Pat Patterson came right out and said, "I want nothing to do with Lou Albano. That man is garbage," and that turned Pat Patterson face. That's what did it. He turned on. They had a 6-man match with Pat Patterson, 2 of Lou Albano's men, and he turned on them, or they turned on Pat, and Pat Patterson became a face for the rest of his career. And his matches with Sergeant Slaughter, after Slaughter was putting people out with the Cobra Clutch, and he couldn't get any challengers. And Pat Patterson, by this time, was a commentator alongside Vince McMahon. He went to the ring to interview Sergeant Slaughter and said, "Slaughter, how come nobody wants to challenge you in your Cobra Clutch challenge?" And Slaughter looked at Patterson, "Because they're all yellow, just like you, Patterson," and slapped Pat Patterson. Patterson ripped off his shirt, ripped off his jacket, grabbed Sergeant Slaughter, said, "Come in the ring." And Pat Patterson was the first man to break Sergeant Slaughter's Cobra Clutch, and that started their epic series of matches in Madison Square Garden, culminating in the Boot Camp Death Match. That still, to this day, it remains one of the most iconic matches, only because Sergeant Slaughter bled a gusher, but it main evented Madison Square Garden that was without a world championship match. It was Pat Patterson and Sergeant Slaughter that main evented. I should say before that, though, when Patterson was Intercontinental Champion, usually when you take on the world champion in the World Wrestling Federation back then, with Bob Backlund, they'd have 3 matches. They'd have one match where the heel would win, namely Patterson. Second match would be a no double disqualification, double countout. And the third match will be the blow-off where the champion, in this case Backlund, would win. Pat Patterson and Bob Backlund did such great business when they fought each other. They went to 4 straight matches at Madison Square Garden. And the 4th one culminated in what Inside Wrestling, the Bill Apter publication, called the most ferocious cage match in history between Pat Patterson and Bob Backlund. They were fighting on top of the cage, and it wasn't until an elbow from Backlund that caused Patterson to fall off the top of the cage, take an insane Bobby Eaton-like bump, and Bob Backlund won the cage match, but he never pinned Pat Patterson, and Patterson could always claim that he was never pinned. But 4 straight matches in Madison Square Garden, 4 straight sellouts, 4 straight 20,000 seats sold to Madison Square Garden between Pat Patterson and Bob Backlund. And of course, we can go on about what Patterson did behind the scenes with Vince. He and Vince formed an amazing friendship. He was the godfather of Stephanie McMahon, and he a visionary in professional wrestling. It was Pat Patterson who invented the Royal Rumble. That was Patterson's idea. The Hulk Hogan Ultimate Warrior match was all planned by Pat Patterson. The Rock Hulk Hogan match at Toronto Skydome, the very beginning, the stare down, the looking at the crowd, that was all Pat Patterson. Pat Patterson, when his brief time in Florida, when he was a heel, he learned a lot from Eddie Graham because it seemed like Pat Patterson took over the mantle of Eddie Graham as being the closer. If you need a finish and you don't have one, you go to Eddie Graham. Was the guy that Vince McMahon Sr., Vern Gagne, Bill Watts would all call, and they would call Eddie Graham during their card to say, "Hey, we got a main event. I don't have an ending." They call up Eddie Graham and they get an ending. Pat Patterson was the closer because if you need a finish for a match, Patterson was your guy. And I will remember him just from his work in the ring and what he and Ray Stevens did as a tag team, his comedy matches. His match with Jerry Briscoe, when he and Jerry Briscoe took on the Mean Street Posse, at the time, that was the highest rated segment in all the Monday Night Wars. And as far as comedy wrestling goes, I got a kick out of that. That was a match where I had friends calling me, "Are you watching this? This is awesome." And I have to agree. So my memories of Pat Patterson are strictly wrestling and what he did for the sport, what he did for creating the Royal Rumble, what he did for endings, and what he did for booking. Pat Patterson deserves his spot in history. I'm only focusing on the wrestling part of Pat Patterson. And if you read our Twitter and our Facebook announcement of tonight's episode, you're going to get three different reactions to the death of Pat Patterson. I'm doing the wrestling part. That's one reaction to his death. And Go, I want to hear yours. So you're up next. Your thoughts and memories of the great Pat Patterson.
I don't, like I said, South American champion, which is the big thing that I really wanted to chime on because, if we're going to bring back championships, it's about time that we really recognize South America as a championship. Other than that, like you said, you're not a big comedy wrestling fan, and you know what? It's real hit or miss. But man, him and Briscoe really just, I thought they were good at what they did in an older age. You know what I'm saying? They held their own for the most part in matches. Can you ask much more of two guys that are backstage and you're going to go out and make goofs of every week who have historic careers on top of this? And Vince just like to troll them out like dummies. And like they took it in stride. I don't know, man. Like it's hard to, like, I know there's out of the ring stuff that's just meh. But like in the ring, like here's two guys that played the role and towed the company line. How much they're, who knows, maybe 10 years from now, The Undertaker has to run out and be a stooge for Shane.
Well, I mean,
Yeah.
There you go. I said it. You're welcome.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
I'm reminded of the late great Kamala, who he also lost. Was it this year? I don't know.
It was this year. That's how long 2020 been. It's the
Everything's
longest decade.
yeah.
Kamala Harris was
Not
nominated
Kamala
for the
Harris. Shut up. That's not what I meant at all.
Go ahead, Dan.
The Tom Park. I'm reminded of the song that Kamala wrote called "Push It." And if either of you have not heard that song before, I know, Craig, you have. That was a formality I was using.
Yes.
Go Thompson, if you've not seen or heard the song.
I have no idea what's happening.
Well, it's about the abuse and the assault that was going around in the WWE at the time. And one of the perpetrators was Mr. Pat Patterson.
Really?
Yeah. There's okay. So I'm not going to sit here and bash the man because number one, apparently I'm not allowed to, because he's dead. And
well, not dead.
Well, no. First of all, let me just say this: the dead don't give a shit. They're dead. I know there's going to be people talking about me when I'm dead, and you know what? I
look right now, it looks like the ghost of Pat Patterson's behind you.
That is terrifying in more ways than one. lost my. God damn it, Mark. ADD. Son of a
No,
bitch.
because it doesn't matter because he's dead. So if people, you
Oh
can
yeah,
say,
yeah. I was gonna say. I even made this point where I see a lot of people go, "Well, he's dead. How dare you do it on the day he's dead?" When I'm dead, feel free. You know why I won't care? Because I'm dead. I don't care. I'll be dead. Uh, there were issues. Now, to be fair, at the time, the sexual assault and the sexual abuse and physical abuse that went on was addressed at the time. But they kind of, the problem I have with it is other careers suffering because of said abuse and allegate. You get what that's the drift I'm getting at. And people say, well, you can't mention it now that he's dead, but you didn't address it when he was alive. So when do you address it? It's the same people that say, well, don't protest on my time. Well, what time's convenient for you? When it's okay. Yeah. Especially the same business that's letting certain spousal abusers go over. Oh, can I talk about that? Is it okay to talk about them? Or did I not talk? Did I talk about them enough because it annoyed you? I have to stop now and stop talking about it. I'm tired of being told how to feel, what to feel about it. Pat Patterson was an amazing wrestler. He's a legend. I appreciate his contributions to the wrestling world. He was the first openly gay wrestler that I know of. I haven't heard before. He was an abusive prick and got away with the abuse. And in the world of speaking out, it feels like 90% of the people that were all over that hashtag were all over it for clout and don't care about the abuse or the assault or any of this other stuff that was going on, because as soon as it suits them, they turn a blind eye to it. When when Moolah died,
yeah,
Craig, you and I talked about it when Moolah died.
yes,
Everybody was all about what she did to the women that worked under her, physically and mentally, the money she stole, the way she beat the shit out of them. And I'm not talking about big old tough old time training. That's a different animal. This is not the same thing. She was terrible to people, and it was okay because it was the great Moolah, and it's not okay.
Yeah, and the emotional toll that she took on.
That's not okay.
Yeah, and Dan when after she died, and you realize how quickly the WWE did an about face, because it was she had a tournament, the women's tournament named after her, and right after she died, and the backlash, the amount of people coming forward to talk about the amount of abuse that Moolah had inflicted upon a generation of female wrestlers, they took the name off. And I've always been a person that if I had plenty of bad things to say about you when you're alive, you dying is not going to change anything. Dying has never made anyone a saint. Okay?
But
it's we're not supposed to say anything bad about Hitler. Oh no, he's dead. You can't say anything bad about him.
Yeah, no, fuck Hitler. He's a piece of shit. To quote Just in America.
Yeah. And so I'm the same way. There was plenty of bad things to say about Pat Patterson, about his abuse, and he was let go from the company after the Mel Phillips. But then he was brought back very quietly, and granted this was in way before social media and newsletters and internet and stuff like that. So when he was gone, and for a matter of time, for a number of months, and then he was back. But he just couldn't talk about it anymore. But it still happened, and what his abuse and his manipulation of certain wrestlers and backstage crew should never be forgotten or should be swept under the rug. People still maintain, and it's always maintained, that the only reason the Brooklyn Brawler got a push in the first place was because of his relationship with Pat Patterson. Because Steve Lombardi had been a career jobber his entire career. Then what do you know? He gets a main event push, and he's on WrestleMania. And from where, for what? And what people would say is because of his relationship with Pat Patterson. That's something that should not be overlooked or should be swept under the rug. And like I said, if you had plenty of bad things to say about Pat Patterson when he was alive, his death shouldn't change a single thing.
Listen, a family lost a relative. It's death. We all go, and we're all gonna go. It's just a question of who first and when. But there's two things we're not avoiding: death and taxes, and sometimes three, the coronavirus, because masks are apparently a problem. But
My man.
and I'm not. Listen, you can Phil Collins. Phil Collins should never be married. Phil Collins can't keep his dick in his pants. He is a horrible husband and a horrible lover. I can acknowledge that.
Maybe he's like a great lover, but he's just like a horrible relationship.
He's an easy lover.
Yeah.
I made the joke before Craig because I feel Craig was.
Beat me by 1 second.
I could feel Craig tapping me on the shoulder, going, "I got one." Oh.
Yeah, but Phil Collins is someone who should never, he's never going to go down in history as a great husband or a great partner.
And in fact, the stuff with his current wife, I was like, that's kind of karma, dude. it's like, what am I supposed to say? Like, how dare her? And I'm like, I mean.
But is Phil Collins still one of the greatest musicians of all time?
Yes, period.
Most definitely.
I just want to make clear that's what we said here.
The top 1,000.
What was that?
Well, I said in the top 1,000.
No, he's in the top 10, 20. Anyway.
Did he just say drummer in the top 1,000?
I just wanted to poke the bear. Go ahead. Keep going.
Oh, my God.
Picking on you. I was just picking on you. Stop it. Get over
I know
yourself.
what you're doing. Purple flavored trash. Perp says, look, I'm not going to his family's place to gloat about how I'm upset that an alleged pedophile rapist who did so for a very long time. My words will never touch their ears. Fuck him. And I get how that feels. You're also discrediting somebody who's been abused because you're like, well, he was. Nobody's questioning his legacy in wrestling. It's a hell of a legacy. But you should absolutely question me when I die. Question me now. Question Craig. Someone tries. Question Mark. Mark thinks Chris Jericho's in the top 10. Why isn't anybody looking into Mark?
Not top 10. Whoa.
Oh, I'm sorry. Greatest of all time.
No. Numero uno.
Yeah. Just saying.
The GOAT.
But it's the same year we lost Kabbalah, and years ago, was it last year or 2 years ago? The fabulous Moolah. I keep saying the great Moolah. I'm like, that's not it at all. Those words are not good. I don't know. My head. The fabulous Moolah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I don't.
Can I go back and watch some AWA matches of the Great Moolah?
Go ahead.
If you can find them.
Nothing's stopping you.
Great Moolah versus Kodiak Bear, 1994.
Did she wrestle Kodiak Bear, or are you also effing with me right now?
No one gets my jokes anymore.
I want the Kodiak Bear in this. I want the Kodiak Bear on the show, damn it.
Do you really want that?
Yes, I want the Kodiak Bear on this show.
Maybe I can make it happen for Christmas.
I know who the Kodiak Bear is, man.
And Pat Patterson actually wrestled a bear during his career.
That's right. Pat Patterson did wrestle a bear.
Was it a Kodiak Bear, though? That's the real.
I don't think it was a Kodiak Bear.
No.
Care Bear.
Joyce Danny says it's not okay. Everyone does not want to talk ill of the dead because of karma. I mean,
what? There's nothing.
Can I really equate any more bad karma at this point?
No.
What is saying something bad about someone who was bad who did bad things when they were alive? Why is saying something bad when they're dead? What does that have to do with karma?
Hold on, I have to scroll back up. I forgot this message from Perp. Hold on. Where is it? When Jerry Sandusky dies, we ain't talking about what he did for UPenn and his children organizations.
Exactly. That bad karma to talk about, when he dies, the amount of kids that have been harmed and, for years they have to worry about.
When Jimmy Snuka died, we did it the same way. We talked about his legacy, and we talked about the stuff after his legacy.
Yes. Again, if you had plenty of bad things to say about when they were alive, them being dead should not change a damn thing. Okay?
True.
If I was a prick while I'm here and I treated anyone I knew like shit and I'm dead, I don't expect the person that I treated like shit to say, "Well, he was kind of funny though. He was funny." I'll give
Listen,
that to him.
enough people have called me a piece of trash that I
Mhm.
just accept that I'm probably a piece of trash, and that not a lot of hell of a lot of people are going to say nice things about me when I'm dead.
Yeah,
The only thing I really wish I had going for me was, like if I was a piece of trash, if I was handsome, that's like the thing they'd cover up with.
See, I am a handsome piece of trash, so I've been told.
I'm a
That
fine piece of shit. I am.
I
Very
cover a lot of
fine
things
piece
up
of
with a
shit.
beard, so I'm mostly beard.
I don't
Yeah.
cover a lot of things up
Yeah,
with a beard. I probably should.
to comment on what Danny said, I mean, if that's your belief, that's fine. But death shouldn't change your opinion of one person. Death doesn't make anyone a saint.
I believe Danny was commenting on how people feel, not how her personal beliefs are. I believe.
Okay,
Fair enough.
those people that feel that way, I vehemently disagree. If I had plenty of bad things to say about when you are alive, I will have plenty. I will have the same bad things to say about you when you're dead.
And here's the thing. This is from Perp. And here's the thing. This isn't removed from his legacy. He was a predator to Ring Boys. And the
Yes, he
WWE
was,
allegedly enabled this.
and that's why they stopped having them
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
because of him.
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah. So thank you for that, Mr. Patterson.
Now, we can all go about our day. Thank you, Pat, for your contributions, and fuck you for your things you took away.
Yes.
Fair enough.
It is a legacy like Snuka and anybody in wrestling. We'll talk about for a long time and debate. Craig, I see your mic going down. What were you going to say?
Yeah, I mean, and professional wrestling is filled with more uh, sketchy characters with questionable background that did tremendous things for the world of professional wrestling. You can look at baseball. You have your Ty Cobbs or your Denny McClains, or in football you have. I'm sure there's a criminal or two in there. OJ obviously is the most popular Hall of Fame double murderer. But with professional wrestling, people like Moolah, Jimmy Snuka, Fritz von Erich,
Fritz, yeah,
that
talk
that
about
weren't
grooming and abuse, man.
that weren't very savory characters. But at the same time, you cannot deny their place in professional wrestling. And I mentioned him earlier in this segment. Eddie Graham wasn't, and the Graham family curse. He took his own life. Mike took his own life, and because of what the business did to them and what they did to certain people in the business. So us being fans of professional wrestling, it just comes with it. A couple of years ago, someone asked me, "Is it hard to be a wrestling fan because we've lost so many great wrestlers so young?" And that's just it comes with it. And when we lose someone, or even if we haven't lost someone, the business of professional wrestling, it kind of breeds unsavory characters. Now, there's some good guys out there that have, lived their lives as wrestlers above board, did the best they could, didn't break any laws, didn't abuse anyone physically, mentally, or sexually, and, got out with their minds intact and can still live to tell the story. I'll talk about that in our future wrestling historian. But every once in a while, when we do lose someone, and it's more often than not someone that has a disreputable past that we can't not address. We can laud them for what they did in the ring, but being an exemplary person outside of the ring isn't always exclusive to being a good person.
Rock and roll Buck Zumhofe.
Yes.
Whatever his name was.
Yeah, Buck Zumhofe. Yes. It just happened. He was just a shitty person as he was a shitty wrestler.
That's what I was going to say.
Yeah.
He's the opposite end of that, right?
Yeah.
He was not only trash in the ring, he was trash out of the ring.
I guess it goes back to the. I brought up the speaking out thing earlier, and and I'm not going to name names, but I see all these when speaking out was happening. You find out real quick, especially when a pandemic's happening. You have a lot of time on your hands. You can see who really wants to make a change and be better, and who doesn't give a damn. And you talk about supporting survivors and victims, but you're quick to donate to a druggie, not a recovering addict. I'm talking about something specifically here, without naming names. Not someone who is trying to better themselves. Somebody who is going to continue to abuse drugs and take your money and do that. This wasn't a wrestling thing. This is a personal thing that is being twisted at a wrestling thing, and it's not. But you'll ignore somebody who's also doing a GoFundMe or trying to raise money to take care of bills, who is genuinely a good person and trying, and lost something because of wrestling, but you're ignoring that because you like this person more. Yeah,
I got you.
I can't. I'll tell you who it is off air.
I'm picking up what you're putting down. I got you.
I don't know if you saw it, Craig, but I'll tell you off air who I'm talking about.
No, I didn't see it, but thank you.
I'll tell you later. But let's get off the serious BS. Oh, and then there's there's another thing. Perp and I were talking about off air, and this comes to there is a show on a Twitter account that came out during all this speaking out stuff, going back to that, with WrestleJoy. And it turns out that, again, I'm not going to name names, but WrestleJoy was, I'm not sure how to word this, but denying white supremacy at the same time being a white supremacist? Or white privilege, I guess? White privilege is the correct word. Denying white privilege at the same time exuding white privilege. And they're not going to be around anymore. But what's WrestleJoy? Leave that question where it is, Danny. Don't go any further with that. WrestleJoy is what it is. But one of the things I was talking about with Perp was the ability to change and learn from your hate or mistake, right? Mark, listen, I said stupid things and hateful, spiteful things when I was younger before I was like,
oh my God.
That's probably not good. Oh, that's not good. That's terrible. You're a terrible person for saying that. Maybe you should not do that anymore. And you learn and you talk to people and you go, listen, I effed up. What can what do I need to do to make this better? What can I do to make this better? And you build from there.
Absolutely. I've made horrible, and looking back at 17-year-old me, I'm like, wow, you were the worst at some points, but
yeah,
you
no,
grow and you
if I ever saw a 15-year-old me on the street, I'd run him over with a car. Absolutely run him over with the car. The 15, 18, 22-year-old me, run over with car, lot to learn.
But that's the beauty of who you are now. You did learn. You
I
did
am beautiful.
grow.
Yes, you are correct. But every day I learn something.
Flower.
Oh, thank you. Stop it. But every day I learn something new. To this day, if you're waking up and you're not learning something new, because I am a deeply flawed and deeply damaged individual. Perfect is not a word that ever crossed my mind and never even thought about, except for this face. Other than that, thank you.
Gold.
Got platinum, baby. But all kidding aside, deeply flawed. little white guy from South Jersey. Some of us never moved away from that. Some of us purposely didn't move away from that. We no longer associate with those people anymore. That person I'm addressing from that podcast of that name I mentioned once and once only has a lot of learning and redemption to do if they want to, but it's going to be a lot. But the hole they took deeper all day was one of those quit while they're not. Are they done or blocked? I think they shut their account off, Danny. I think they're gone. But all the replies are there. Oh no, they're back. Yeah, they're all there. They're protected, but all the replies are there. There's screenshots out there somewhere. Danny, look up post and not person. Answering, but what Perp and I were talking about was answering for it and being better, because redemption is allowed. Now, you and I don't get to decide when that redemption is. Period. Society doesn't decide. The people who were involved get to decide when that redemption is. That's what I've been told. That's what I was taught as a young man, and how I had to learn the hard way sometimes. When they're ready to accept your apology, that's when the apology is done. Until then, you deal with it and you move on and learn. Or be racist and piece of shit on purpose, and you're just a racist piece of shit. Craig, you teach me things every month at least where I'm like, didn't know that.
I understand, Dan.
Thank you.
That's that's what makes you. And when we do, and I did the historian, a couple weeks ago when I talked about the first time that a black wrestler wrestled another black wrestler, and this is in 1963.
In 1963.
Or the first time a white wrestler teamed up with a black wrestler, and this was in 1966.
That's it. Wait, but Craig, that's how shitty white people were. They weren't even let black people wrestle each other. What the fuck?
But we learn, and that's how we move on. And part of the idea of the historian is just not only just bringing you dates and about things that happen in professional wrestling, but the key word is history, historian, how far we've come and how far we still have to go. And it blows your mind that this was only happening in 1966, which is in my lifetime. That just happened
last year.
Yeah, then it's something that we need to carry on as human beings. And since we were, go ahead, Dan.
I'm laughing at it, but I'm not laughing at you. That's what makes me laugh about some people that like. Well, the civil rights thing. 1968 is a long time ago. Yes, but in 1967, Craig's grandfather was still getting threatened to be hung in a tree.
Yeah. And Martin Luther King died in my lifetime, so and assassinated. So it's everyone like it wasn't that long ago for me.
No, it was yesterday. So shut up.
And especially if anyone who's lived through this year, 2020, with police attacking peaceful protesters, and then tell me that 1968 was a long time ago. This year was 1968 all over again. Okay. So, and I know this is a wrestling podcast, and I swear to God, people listening, we are going to talk wrestling.
Listen, that was 10 minutes of about, how long have we been going? About 40.
Yeah.
But I was just, I was getting social justice for a minute there.
Good. And
thank you.
But if we can do that every podcast, that'd be great. But I especially wanted something that's on your mind, or if it's something that affects wrestling, the fact that wrestling, that particular wrestling organization is no longer around.
If it wasn't still happening now, and directly tied into wrestling, some of the things I see that I kind of hang back on now, because it's like I'm not involved, don't say anything, then I probably wouldn't have said anything. But considering that the attention span for wrestling is about 6 seconds, I felt it was relevant.
Oh.
But let's move off the serious stuff, because Mark is real excited to talk about the return.
I was going to say, I'm going to wait us back to the shallow end of the pool here.
Yeah. Back to the shallow end where it's easier to swim. The NWA has returned from the pandemic break.
I'm super excited about this. The presentation is not superior. I mean, the presentation beforehand was not superior, but it was fun. You know what I'm saying? Like the NWA Power show was fun because it looked like old wrestling, right? But now, no, I don't think any wrestling has looked more awkward in front of no one. But the wrestling itself was awesome last night. NWA Shock is what they're calling it.
Shockwave.
It's on Shockwave. I apologize. I just wanted to be one word. NWA Shockwave is on. It airs on Monday on one of the wackadoo independent wrestling networks. But why would you pay for that like a lunatic when you could just watch it on YouTube the next day for free and it's a half hour long?
Yeah, it was 33 minutes. I watched it right before we got on here. I was like, well, let me see what they're doing. And I just wanted to add that Nick Aldis is so good.
He's the most underrated wrestler.
How? Listen, and it all goes back to he had a match with Isaiah Frazier and Nova for the NWA title. And I swear to you, Craig, I will find this match. I will look for this match. It's so good. It's so good. And nobody's ever heard of Isaiah. And how dare you?
And I just want to comment on what Mark said. I know you said he's the most underrated. Anyone who's ever seen Nick Aldis or even remembers him as Magnus in TNA knows how good he is. So I wouldn't say he was the most underrated. He's the most not known, because I would put him right next to Drew McIntyre right now.
I was going to say, I apologize. He's kind of lost in the shuffle of how wrestling has turned out right now. You're absolutely right. Saying he's underrated is wrong. But like lost in the universe of professional wrestling right now.
The fact that he's on NWA, not TNA or AEW or WWE, is insulting. Although I don't know if I'd want him in WWE at this point.
I definitely wouldn't want him in AEW because he will be criminally misused and he shouldn't be part of the Tony Khan Amateur Hour. But go ahead.
He does. Once again, I hate. He does the gimmick that we've talked about. He's like the Nick Bockwinkel. He's the Ric Flair. He's the $1 Million Man toned down. Like, he's the rich guy that's better than you. But the fact that he's also British really I feel like just lines the coffin with cement and makes it just so much better. Because like when he talks to me, I'm like, no, you're right. You're right, Nick Aldis. I should be doing better. Absolutely. I will never own a suit as nice as yours. I'm sorry. I've let you down.
He's got the old school xenophobia go. It's like anyone who's not American, he's automatically a heel. Especially if he's British, that means he's snooty. If he's German, that means he's evil. If he's has brown, if he's Iranian or even foreign looking, he's the enemy. But he pulls it off better than any. He's one of the guys. I mean, we've talked about it. In any era, he would be a 70s NWA champion. He would be an 80s like world-class heavyweight champion. He could work in any territory and he would fit in perfectly. Any era.
There's two things you can do with British people in professional wrestling. You can make them the British Bulldog, and he's a lovable scamp, and he's a big tough guy, or he's a total jerk. There's no middle ground for British people in professional wrestling. It's just how it is. Steven Regal, is there a middle ground for him? He was a lovable dude, or he was a total dirtbag, right?
Yeah. No, there was no really
Maybe,
hot.
I don't know.
No, there was no hot and cold with Mr. William Regal, Mr. Lord Steven Regal. He was either Lord Steven Regal, William Regal, or William Regal. But there was no in between. No.
Gentleman Chris Adams, who was Steven Regal's mentor, who broke him into the sport, a very good face, but man, when he turned heel, it felt like the world couldn't wait to boo him. And he stayed heel for the rest of his shortened career, his alcohol-fused career. But that's another guy, speaking of which, that plenty of great things to say about his stuff and his place in the ring, the inventor of the super kick, the single most popular move in professional wrestling now.
Oh my God.
Chris Adams invented it, but flaming douche-tard outside of the ring and drank himself to a premature death, which is really sad.
I have not heard those two amazing words put together before.
Yeah, well, I very rarely talk about Chris Adams before, so that's when I use it. But
specifically reserved for him. That's nice.
For Chris Adams, yeah. But part of the world class curse. But yes, back to NWA. I'm sorry, Shockwave.
I'm just excited for it to be back and be on every week.
Just something else to watch. Give me something in my eyes to try something else.
And it's just like such a different brand of professional wrestling. It's not. AEW's got its thing, and it's kind of spotty, and it likes to choreograph a lot of nonsense. And it's like sometimes it doesn't all the time. And NXT is what it is, and it's just like when I watch the NWA, I'm like, man, if I showed my grandpa this, he would be like, let's watch another one. It just got that nice, that old wrestling feel, but there's still nice new stuff in it, storyline wise and character development wise. I don't know. I'm just so happy. It made me feel good last night to find that on YouTube. It was like, hey, dummy, here's this for you. And I was like, what? Christmas came early. So,
very good.
Anyway, that's all. That's my big thing on Shockwave. So,
hey, Hood Slam. There's for those who are tired of. I want to present two alternates and a third. Obviously, it's coming up for those that are tired of the same cycle of wrestling shows out there.
yes.
I advise you to check out Hood Slam. Hood Slam is West Coast based.
Okay.
Person of color operated. Please check out Hood Slam. Our friend Perp has not put Hood Slam over enough. I mean that sarcastically. They put it over all the time. And
can I YouTube this?
Yes, you can.
Sweet.
And I have been told, fair warning, it is best seen live, which obviously will be a while before you see it again. But you can check out Hood Slam on Twitter and on YouTube. I was looking for the Twitter account to mention this other company so I could plug the Twitter, and I can't goddamn find it. But to the third one I was going to mention, which I'll slide in a second since I'm looking for the other one, because I want to get all the information correct, is Butch versus Gore. Butch versus Gore is coming back. LGBT own and run.
Wow.
LGBTQ and own and run. The last wrestling show in the DC area that went off before the week, that 3 days before lockdown, was the last Butch versus Gore. It was the last primetime pro wrestling, which is going to give birth to eventually Butch versus Gore whenever the hell we can all get together again. And there was a spinoff, not a spinoff, but excuse me. There was another event that happened by trans woman of color in Oakland is who runs Hood Slam. Thank you very much. Again, I keep forgetting to look them up. I have them on my notes for this weekend on stuff to watch. And but there was an event, the first ever pro wrestling Kiki Ball happened last month. Paris is burning. Paris is wrestling, excuse me, based on Paris is burning.
Catchy title.
Yes, taken from that movie.
I hope so.
And it's under an hour.
Ooh.
And it does tease the sequel to what I was going to say. Butch versus Gore is coming back after the lockdowns are over.
Nice.
So,
sold.
I cannot say enough. Again, coming with growing up and learning new things, you find out things about yourself and things that have been missing. And I am 100%, 1,000% will die on the hill for these people. I will literally die on that hill. I was going to go into the whole Elliot Page Twitter debacle that it is, because apparently somebody being happy bothers so many other people, but we'll do that next week.
Okay.
But I think we covered a lot on this first part of this week. I think we covered each of it in the correct way, unless you're mad at me, and then in case I don't give a shit. So, Mr. Thompson, where can people follow you, sir? Unless you had something else to add, but I don't think we do. I guess we lost Thompson. You lose Thompson? We lost Thompson.
Okay.
We can find Mark Thompson at Go Thompson. Mr. Legans, plug away. Your socials.
Okay, thank you for that qualifier because I was about to plug some serious stuff. But you can follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and on Twitter at Craig Legans, CraigLiGeons.
I just got a tweet from Ryan, old friend Ryan Jones, that says, "Tell me more about how AEW is different than WCW." And then a tweet that says, "Addendum to this, I'm very happy for Dan Law, though. I'm terrified to look at what just happened. Do you know?"
I have no idea.
Oh, no. I'm scared to... Is Sting in AEW? Nope, I'm not watching.
Okay, all right.
No.
All right. I'm currently, as we're doing this live, I'm currently watching NXT and I'm DVRing AEW, so I have no idea what's happening on AEW. So I'm not looking at any spoilers. So I'll take whatever Rai Jones says with a grain of salt or a spoonful of sugar or however he means it. So I'm sure that's something we'll discuss on next week's HIAC Talk Radio.
Yeah, so you can find me having a heart attack, apparently, on social media, on all social media platforms at DanLaw83. YouTube. If you missed any of this episode, go to youtube.com/DanLaw83. Please look at my other, at this point, I'm begging you, put it on play and go to sleep. Sleep to my beautiful voice. DanLaw83 on YouTube, on all social media platforms. HIAC Talk Radio is on VOCNation.com or on your smartphone. Go to your podcast app, type in specifically VOC Nation Radio Network, and you'll find all of our podcasts. For the dead, apparently, Mark Go Thompson. And Craig Legans. I am not Craig. You're Craig Legans. I'm Dan Calchigo. Holy Jesus, we are done. See you next time. Look for out for the Wrestling Historian episode. Good night.